All right, gotta admit, this deep dive, we're starting off with a real weird one. We've got booking software, a chicken recipe, a philosophy essay on love, and
Quantum mechanics.
yeah, like someone just raided my random ideas drawer, decided to make, I don't know, a deep dive out of it.
You're not wrong to feel a little bewildered, a little confused, but
A little.
that's what makes these deep dives so fascinating. I mean, even in the most unexpected combinations, there are often hidden connections just waiting to be discovered.
Okay, I'm willing to give it a shot,
Yeah.
but you're gonna have to lead the way on this one. I'm completely lost. Like, where do we even begin to unpack all this bizarre mix of sources?
Well, let's start with what might seem like the most straightforward, right? The booking software, Syngenuity.
Okay.
Their whole philosophy seems to revolve around this idea of simplicity, efficiency. Their tagline is big or small, simple software wins. And they use some pretty blunt phrases throughout their materials. Things like don't make shift up and more butts and more seats.
Yeah, it's very clear. They're all about making things easier
Yeah.
for tour and attraction businesses, and of course helping them boost their bottom line. But I'm still struggling to see how this connects to, well, say cooking a chicken.
Okay, think about it this way. Both Syngenuity and Jessica Gavin's chicken recipe, they're essentially providing frameworks for achieving a desired outcome,
All
right?
right.
Syngenuity is offering a system for streamlining booker processes and optimizing revenue, while the recipe provides these precise steps to make sure you have a perfectly cooked chicken. They both aim to minimize guesswork and maximize the chances of success.
I see what you mean. Both are giving us a kind of roadmap, set of rules to follow.
Sure.
But is that really a deep connection, or is it just a surface level similarity?
It's a good starting point. Let's dig a little deeper though.
Uh-huh.
Both the software and the recipe. They aim to create a positive experience, not just a functional one, right? So
Okay.
Syngenuity, they want to make the booking process smooth and enjoyable for both the business and the customer. And Jessica Gavin's recipe, this isn't just about getting food on the table, right?
Got it.
It's about creating a delicious meal that everyone will enjoy.
Okay. So they both strive for this efficiency and this positive experience.
Mhm.
But where does love fit into all of this? I mean, I love a good chicken dinner, but I'm not sure I'd call it an act of love to use booking software.
Maybe not in the traditional sense, but
Ugh.
remember how John Iker defines love in his essay? He talks about it as this belief in inherent goodness, a willingness to invest in something without expecting anything in return.
Right.
So could we see the meticulous crafting of a recipe
Mm.
or the development of this intuitive software as a kind of expression of this love,
Uh-huh.
a desire to create something good, something beneficial for others?
Hmm. That's an interesting way to look at it. I can kind of see how both Syngenuity and Jessica Gavin's recipe
Hmm.
could be viewed as attempts to bring order and goodness into the world, to make things a little bit better, a little bit easier.
Exactly. And perhaps that connects to the idea of faith that Eichert mentions,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
He says that love requires a certain amount of faith, a willingness to believe in something even when you can't see all the evidence.
I suppose you could say that using a new software or trying a new recipe does require a leap of faith. You're trusting the system or the instructions
Mm-hmm.
to guide you to that desired outcome, even though you haven't experienced it firsthand yet.
Precisely. And speaking of leaps of faith and trusting systems, that brings us to the most perplexing piece,
Here we go.
quantum
I,
mechanics.
I have to confess, quantum mechanics, it's a bit of a blind spot for me. It always feels like I'm on the verge of understanding it, and then it just slips away
Mm.
like a slippery quantum
Well,
particle.
I know what you mean. It's a notoriously mind-bending subject, but I think there might be some surprising parallels to be drawn here.
Okay.
One of the key concepts in quantum mechanics is this idea of entanglement, where the state of a composite system is not determined solely by its individual parts. Okay.
In other words, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Okay, I'm vaguely familiar with that concept, but I'm struggling to see how it relates to booking software or cooking chicken. Are you suggesting that there's some sort of quantum entanglement happening in my oven when I roast a chicken?
Maybe. Maybe not literally, but think about the chicken recipe again.
Okay.
You have all these separate ingredients, each with its own unique properties.
Mm-hmm.
But when you combine them in just the right way, they interact and they transform
Yeah.
into something entirely new, delicious.
Right.
The final dish, it's not simply a collection of ingredients. It's It's a cohesive whole that emerges from their interconnectedness.
All right, I can see that. Each ingredient plays a crucial role, and that final result is dependent on their intricate interplay.
Yeah.
But how does that relate to entanglement? And what about the software? Where does it fit into this quantum culinary analogy? Even if they are physically separated, they remain connected in a way that just defies classical physics.
Okay.
And in a way, I think we see a similar principle at work in the ecosystem that Singenuity talks about, right?
Mm.
They emphasize the importance of connecting different aspects of a tour or attraction business, creating a unified system where each component contributes to the overall success.
So you're saying that just like entangled particles, the different elements of a business or a recipe they're intrinsically linked, even though they might appear distinct on the surface. I'm starting to see how these seemingly random pieces might actually fit together. But I still feel like we're just scratching the surface here.
You're right, and this is where things start to get really interesting, right?
Okay.
Because if we can find these kinds of connections between things like chicken recipes and quantum physics, what other hidden relationships might be out there just waiting to be uncovered?
That's a great question, and one that I think we'll need to explore further in this deep dive. But for now, my brain needs a moment to process all of this. I'm starting to feel a little entangled myself. Yeah, I've had a few minutes to kind of let all that simmer. And I have to say, this deep dive is really starting to cook, but I still feel like we're kind of dancing around the edges of this whole quantum mechanics thing. Is there a way to connect it to the other topics in a way that doesn't make my brain feel like it's gone through a quantum blender?
I hear you. Quantum mechanics, it can feel like a real leap from the familiar world of cooking and software. But bear with me. Remember how we talked about faith?
You okay?
And accepting things we can't fully see in both love and trying new things.
Right.
Well, quantum mechanics throws us an even bigger curveball, right? It tells us that the very act of observing something can change it.
Hold on.
It's called the measurement problem.
Okay, you've officially lost me. How can simply looking at something change it? That sounds like something out of a science fiction movie.
I know it sounds counterintuitive. Imagine you're trying to figure out how fast a baseball is moving. In the everyday world, you use a radar gun, right?
Right.
Get a reading, and the baseball zips along unaffected. But in the quantum world, the act of measuring the baseball's speed actually affects its movement. It's as if the baseball knows it's being watched and changes its behavior accordingly.
That's wild. So are you saying that reality is subjective? That what we observe, it depends on how we observe it? Does that mean there's no objective truth?
It's not quite that simple. The point is that on a subatomic level, the act of observation, it's not passive. It's an interaction that can affect the very thing being observed. It challenges our assumptions about a fixed and objective reality.
Okay, I think I'm starting to grasp the concept, but I'm still not sure how it connects to the other sources.
Yeah.
Is there a measurement problem happening when I check on my chicken in the oven?
Perhaps not in the literal quantum sense, but think about it this way. Even with a precise recipe like Jessica Gavin's, there are countless variables that can affect the outcome. The oven temperature, slight variations in ingredients, even the humidity in the air. Each time you open the oven to check on the chicken, you're introducing a change to the environment, potentially impacting the cooking process.
So even something as simple as cooking a chicken is subject to a degree of uncertainty, unpredictability, just like in quantum mechanics.
Exactly. And that same principle applies to the software world as well, right?
Okay.
Singenuity might offer a streamlined system for managing bookings, but there are always unforeseen circumstances, user errors, and external factors that can disrupt the flow.
So even with the most meticulously crafted plans and systems, there's always a degree of uncertainty baked into the equation. We can't control every outcome, no matter how hard we try.
Precisely. And that's where I think the connection to John Eichard's essay on love becomes really profound. He talks about love requiring a certain amount of blindness to evidence that might contradict our beliefs. In other words, we have to accept that there will always be unknowns, uncertainties, and even disappointments in any loving relationship.
So you're saying that embracing uncertainty is not just a scientific principle, but also a key element of love and human connection.
Yeah.
We have to learn to let go of the need for absolute control and embrace the messiness and unpredictability of life.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and I think that's a powerful message that we can take away from this seemingly bizarre mix of sources. Whether we're talking about cooking, booking software, or quantum mechanics, there's a fundamental truth that unites them all. The world is a complex and interconnected place, full of surprises and uncertainties.
I'm starting to feel like this deep dive is turning into a philosophy lesson, as much as an exploration of different topics. But I have to say, I'm really enjoying the ride. What other unexpected insights await us as we continue to unravel these connections?
Well, if we're starting to see the world as this complex web of interconnected systems, it makes you wonder what are the implications of that worldview? How does it change the way we approach our lives, our relationships, and even our understanding of reality itself?
Those are big questions. I'm not sure I have the answers, but I'm definitely intrigued to explore them further. Let's dive into the next layer of this onion and see what other revelations emerge. Okay, so we've explored these surprising links between like efficiency, love, uncertainty, and even quantum mechanics. But I'm still wrestling with that final thought that you left us with. What are the real-world implications of this interconnected worldview? How should it change how we live?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's one thing to grasp these connections intellectually, but how do we actually apply them to our daily lives, you know?
Exactly. It's easy to get lost in the theoretical weeds, but I'm eager to kind of bring this all back down to earth. Like what's the takeaway message for our listeners who are not theoretical physicists
No.
or philosophers, but just regular folks trying to navigate this crazy world?
Well, let's think about this Ingenuity software again. It's all about streamlining and efficiency, right? And that reflects a broader trend in our society where we're obsessed with optimizing everything,
Yeah.
from how we work to how we shop to how we even spend our leisure time.
It's true. We're constantly bombarded with messages about productivity hacks, time-saving tips, and maximizing our output. It can feel like we're always on this relentless treadmill of efficiency.
And that's where I think the potential downside comes in. While efficiency certainly has its benefits, I think John Eggers' essay reminds us that there's more to life than just maximizing output. Love, he argues, is about valuing inherent goodness, not just achieving some measurable result.
So are you suggesting that our relentless pursuit of efficiency, that it might actually be hindering our capacity for love and genuine connection?
I wouldn't say hindering, but perhaps it's shifting our focus in a way that's not always healthy. You know, when we become too fixated on optimization, we risk reducing human experiences to mere transactions, always looking for the most efficient way to get from point A to point B.
I see what you mean. It's like the difference between cooking a meal with love and care, savoring each step of the process versus just throwing a frozen dinner in the microwave.
Right.
Both might satisfy your hunger, but the experiences are vastly different.
Precisely. And just as Singenuity's FAQs revealed, those anxieties about change and uncertainty. I think many people, they feel a growing unease about the rapid pace of technological change and the increasing complexity of our world.
It's like we're all trying to follow a recipe that's constantly being rewritten, and we're not even sure if we have all the right ingredients.
Exactly. And then quantum mechanics comes along and says, hold on, even if you had the perfect recipe, you still can't control everything.
Right.
There's always an element of uncertainty, a fundamental limit to what you can know and predict.
So are you saying we're all doomed to live in a state of perpetual anxiety, constantly bombarded by change and uncertainty? Because that's a pretty bleak outlook.
Not necessarily. I think the key is to shift our perspective. Instead of seeing uncertainty as something to fear, we can learn to embrace it as a source of creativity, possibility.
Okay.
Just as Jessica Gavin encourages us to experiment in the kitchen.
Right.
We need to be more willing to experiment in our lives, to try new things, to step outside our comfort zones, and to accept that not everything will go according to plan.
So instead of striving for absolute control, we should focus more on the process, on the journey, on the joy of discovery.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe by embracing uncertainty, we'll stumble upon unexpected connections and insights that we never would have found if we were too busy trying to control every outcome, just like we did in this deep dive.
Well said. And I think that's a perfect note to end on. We started with a seemingly random assortment of sources, And somehow we've managed to connect them in a way that's both insightful and thought-provoking. We've explored efficiency, love, uncertainty, and even a touch of quantum mechanics. And I think we've come out the other side with a richer understanding of how these concepts intertwine in our everyday lives.
Absolutely. If this deep dive has taught us anything, it's that the world is full of surprising connections and hidden depths. It's up to us to remain curious, open-minded, and willing to explore the unexpected.
So to our listeners out there, I encourage you to embrace the uncertainty, stay curious, and keep exploring the connections that weave together the fabric of our world. You never know what fascinating discoveries wait you just around the corner.